assignment 0. So do we need to submit assignment 0?
No, you don't need to.
Okay, okay. Okay, but if somebody wants for submission and for a feedback, then he can do it.
Yes, yes. If anyone wants to submit assignment 0, they are free. They are free to do so. And on assignment 0, I will also allow submissions by collaboration. So if you are collaborating with 2 or 3 others, I don't care how many people you collaborate with, but it's assignment 0. It doesn't count towards your marks. So you can also submit in groups if you like, right? And if you don't want to submit, you don't need to submit. Okay. I would suggest using LaTeX, especially for those who have never used LaTeX. In fact, I would mandate it. If you want to submit and get feedback, I would mandate using LaTeX. You can do it in groups so that you don't all have to type so much, right? But assignment 1 onwards, you have to submit each assignment individually. I might make an exception for the writing exercises. I have not made a decision yet. It will depend on how many students we have. Okay.
Okay. So just from assignment onwards, we cannot form groups.
You can form groups to collaborate, but submission has to be individual. So you cannot form groups to write. You can only form groups of 2 or 3 people, depending on the strength. I will announce that. But those are only to discuss the mathematical ideas. But as far as the writing is concerned, everyone has to do it individually and submit responses in their own words.
Okay.
Yeah, I will make all the instructions clear with the assignment as well. Okay.
And for all the assignment, LaTeX is mandatory.
Yes. Okay, so you can use the same template that I've shared with you and just make changes to that template.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay.
Any other questions or concerns? All right. So good morning, everyone, and let's start. So today, as we discussed, we are going to at least try to state our first structural theorem, and time permitting, we will also prove it. Okay. But I want to discuss the connections of structural graph theory with complexity theory and algorithms, especially for those who are in theoretical CS or in CS. But I hope that it's also useful to the others who may not be from CS. Okay? Right. So yesterday we discussed a bunch of graph classes, right? And let's just take a look. We discussed forest, trees, path cycles, etc. So let's look at trees, right? Or forests. Forests are acyclic graphs. Okay? So graphs that do not contain a cycle as a subgraph. Okay? Today I want to move to another very important graph class, which is much richer in structure than all the graph classes we have discussed so far. These are called the bipartite graphs. So is anyone familiar with bipartite graphs? Would you like to define them?
Yes. So a bipartite graph is a graph such that there exists a partition of the vertex set such that every edge belonging to the graph has one end in one set and the other end in the other set.
Exactly. Thank you, Shrikant. So it's exactly as Shrikant said. It's a graph in which you can partition the vertex set into 2 parts, V1 and V2. And every edge now must go from V1 to V2. So every edge has to have one end in V1 and the other end in V2, right? So it's graphs where you are able to partition the vertex set V of G into V1 and V2 so that each edge joins a vertex in V1 to a vertex in V2. Okay? Great. That's one way to define bipartite graphs. I want to write down an equivalent definition of bipartite graphs using colorings. So some of you may have already seen colorings in your previous courses. So let's define colorings today itself. A K coloring of a graph also called a K vertex coloring, because later in the course we'll be talking about edge colorings as well. But if I just say K coloring, I mean K vertex coloring, is an assignment of K colors to the vertices of the graph, such that what you want is any two vertices that are adjacent with each other, you want them to have different colors, such that any two adjacent vertices have distinct colors. Notice that when you talk about colorings, you cannot allow loops, because if there is a loop, then the vertex is adjacent to itself. So that's not allowed. And parallel edges do not matter, because if two vertices are adjacent by one edge, whether they are adjacent by three edges, it doesn't change the problem. So typically, in the study of vertex colorings, it is common and common sense to assume that the graph G is simple. It doesn't change the problem in vertex colorings. Okay? So now can somebody tell me a definition? Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So if the graph G has loops, then a K coloring cannot exist, we can say, in other words.
Right, exactly. If a graph has loops, then you just cannot have a K coloring.
But sir, what is the problem with multiple edges?
They don't make any difference to the problem. So if your graph has multiple edges joining two vertices, it is the same as having a single edge.
Okay, sir.
Right? So there is no reason to consider multiple edges.
Okay.
Right? Okay, I have called this a 2K coloring. Typically, we use the term proper K coloring, but I will just say K coloring. Okay? So in Bondi Murthy, for instance, it's called a proper K coloring. Okay? Because they call a K coloring any assignment of colors to the vertices with no restrictions. And if it has a restriction, then they call it a proper K coloring. Okay, so I will not use the word proper. I will just say K coloring. So now you can define bipartite graphs using colorings. Can anybody tell me what the definition should be?
A two colorable graph should be.
Exactly. Bipartite graphs are exactly the two colorable graphs. Bipartite is exactly the same as two colorable graphs. Okay? Because you have two parts, you make all of these vertices black and all of the other vertices white, right? And then you have a proper two coloring of the graph. Okay? So one very interesting problem that arises is deciding whether a graph is K colorable. Okay? So I will call this a decision problem. Those of you who have some background in theoretical computer science, you might have seen decision problems before.
I think probably three coloring is NP complete. Means
That's right. That's right. So the problem would be decide whether a given graph G is K colorable. Okay? So that is a very general decision problem. For any value of K, you want to decide whether the graph is K colorable or is not. Right? Okay. We will talk about this problem when we get to colorings. But basically, as one of you, I think, Aranya pointed out, this is a hard problem computationally. It's what is called an NP-hard problem in theoretical computer science terms. Okay, so this is a hard problem from a computational point of view. Okay, but since we haven't talked about these computational complexity classes and all, let's not go too deep into that right now. I want to take a step back and look at the simpler problem, or the first interesting instance for k equal to 2. K equal to 1 is trivial, right? When is a graph one colorable? Can anybody tell me? Which graphs are one colorable?
Empty.
No.
Sorry? Empty.
No, it
Did
is-
somebody say empty graphs?
Oh, yes, I
Right.
said that.
One colorable just means that your graph is the empty graph, because any edge will not allow you to use just one color, right? If there is an edge, you have to use at least two colors. Okay? So one colorable is very uninteresting, but at 2, the problem becomes somewhat interesting. Decide whether a given graph G is 2 colorable. And that is the same as saying that the graph is bipartite. Okay?
Sir,
Yes.
I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Sir, one colorable is empty, you said, right? So, what about disconnected graphs, like 1 vertices, which are not connected?
Right. So as per our definition of empty graphs, those are also empty graphs. Because what is an empty graph? It is a complement of a complete graph. So you can have any number of vertices, but no two vertices should be adjacent.
Oh,
Right? So it takes care of the disconnected case as well. In other words, the only connected one colorable graph is K1. Okay? And all other one colorable graphs are unions of K1. They are just disconnected single vertices.
okay.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Yes, Aranya, could you please mute yourself? No, I think he's muted right now.
No,
Okay,
actually, I accidentally unmuted myself. Sorry.
okay, good, good. All right, so let's talk about this decision problem. Okay? Okay. So someone has just entered the classroom. Please send me your email address so that I can add you to the Google Groups, right? Because otherwise I have to admit you anytime you join the classroom. Okay? So let's talk about this decision problem. Is there anyone who has not seen decision problems before, or who is not at all familiar with decision problems? If there, then please let me know. Then I can say a few words about decision problems. Okay. So what I want to do next is, I want to tell you about some complexity classes, NP, ONP, and P. These are the three complexity classes I want to talk about. These are not, I mean, this complexity and algorithms related discussion is not part of the regular syllabus, right? But I'm saying this because I want you to be able to connect graph theory with other important areas in mathematics and theoretical computer science. Okay? And hopefully that will help you appreciate other results in the course, not just what we are talking about today. Okay, so in theoretical CS, you have these decision problems, right? You have an input. Here the input is a graph. How you represent the input and all that I don't care about. We are not doing implementation stuff here. We are talking at a much more abstract theoretical layer. And your problem is to decide whether the input graph is two colorable, whether it is bipartite or not. Okay? So there are two types, there are two possibilities. The input graph is either two colorable or it is not. So these are called yes instances. So you will say yes, the graph is two colorable. And then you have no instances. So yes instances are basically bipartite graphs, and no instances are non-bipartite graphs. A graph is non-bipartite if it is not bipartite. Okay? Good. So now, I want to pose a question to you. how would you verify a yes instance? So I'm going to write down this question in two ways. How would you verify a yes instance? And if this is not clear, let me put it in a bit more standard, let's say a bit more layman terms. How would you convince your friend? How would you convince your friend that a given graph is indeed bipartite? Any answers? You have a graph, okay, and you just want to convince your friend that this graph is bipartite. How would you go about doing that?
I can propose it to
Color
coloring.
Okay, Ananya says propose a two coloring. Sheila?
Yes, sir. We can color it and show, right?
Exactly. Okay. So color it with two colors, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So what they are saying is that you just show your friend two coloring of the graph. Okay. For example, if I give you a cycle, okay, and you want to convince your friend that this is bipartite, well, you color this vertex black, this one white, this one black, and the last one white again. Right? So you have a two coloring, and now your friend can check that this is indeed a two coloring of the graph. Right? Okay. So that's easy. So when you can easily convince someone that a given input is a yes instance, the problem is said to belong, the decision problem is said to belong with the complexity class NP. Okay? This is one way to put it. I'm going to make it a bit more rigorous. If this makes you a bit twitchy, don't worry about that. So, if you can easily, okay, maybe I'll put it differently. If yes instances are easily verifiable, then the decision problem belongs to the complexity class NP. Okay? So that's the definition of the complexity class NP. Of course, there are some vague terms here. Easily verifiable. What does easily verifiable mean? If you want to make this very precise, you have to say it's easily verifiable using the deterministic Turing machine. So if you want to make it really precise, you have to use more technical terms which are beyond the scope of this course. Some of you may have never heard about Turing machine, that's fine. So don't worry about it. Think about it, is it intuitively easily verifiable? That will be good enough for this course. Okay, this is not a course on complexity theory. So if intuitively you feel that your friend can easily check that a graph is the two coloring provided is indeed the two coloring, then your problem belongs to the complexity class NP. Okay?
So what is DP?
Decision problem. A given decision problem. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me call this problem here decision problem 0. Okay? Just so that we have a reference. Okay, and here it is a general decision problem. And similarly, okay, so now let's talk about the other question, right? The elephant in the room. How would you convince your friend that a given graph is non-bipartite? Okay, so how would you verify a no instance?
I can provide an odd cycle.
Okay, that's a very good point. So, okay, so there is one answer here. Sorry, not new, no instance, my bad. Okay, so you're talking about odd cycles. Okay. But you need a theorem for that, don't you?
Yes, actually, yes.
Right. So you're relying on a certain theorem to convince your friend that a given graph is indeed non-bipartite, right? And so that is the theorem we are going to talk about. Anybody else? So I want an answer that does not contain odd cycles. Is there any easy way to convince your friend that a graph is non-bipartite? Does anybody have any ideas? Okay. So the only answer, yeah, go
The
ahead.
most naive way would be like you can brute force color each
Right.
node 1 or 2, and then you could show.
Right. You can try all assignments of colorings 1 and 2 to your vertex set, or red and blue if you like, and check all those possibilities, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that is a valid answer. The only problem is that is not easily verifiable because the number of possibilities to color a graph with two colors, red and blue, is too many. So intuitively, that is not a very viable way to convince your friend.
Okay. I mean, I was just saying like without using.
No. You're right. So that is exactly what I was looking for. So that is a way to convince someone. Unfortunately, it is computationally too expensive, right? And I'm not going to make these things formal because we are not in a computational complexity or algorithms course right now. Okay, but intuitively you can see that there are too many ways to assign two colors to all the vertices, and checking all those possibilities does not seem to be a very attractive option in life. Right? Okay, good. So it turns out if you just go by the definition of a bipartite graph, then it's not immediately clear how you would verify a no instance easily. How would you, I should say, easily verify a no instance? And maybe let me also put, maybe I shouldn't put easily. We have multiple answers, right? So there is a naive way. Check all two colorings. But this is not very attractive. From a computational point of view, it seems like a bit of a nightmare, right? So if you go by just the definition, from just the definition, it's not clear how you would do this easily. Okay. Luckily, we have theorems which will help us to do things easily. So let me define the complexity class CoNP. If no instances are easily verifiable, then the problem belongs to CoNP. If no instances are easily verifiable, then the decision problem under discussion belongs to CoNP. Okay, and so right now we do not know whether the decision problem 0, whether a graph is bipartite or not, does it belong to CoNP? We don't know at this point in our discussion, right? But in a few minutes we will see why this does belong to CoNP. Okay. All right. So now, can somebody give me an example of a non-bipartite graph? The smallest example of a non-bipartite graph.
C3.
C3. Great. So the smallest simple non-bipartite graph is this one. If you allow loops, then this is also a non-bipartite graph, but we don't care too much about it because generally when discussing colorings, of which bipartite is a special case, we don't allow loops, right? So these are non-bipartite graphs. Can you generalize this?
But if it contains a cycle of more than 3 length,
What about 4?
The
What
cycle
about a
of
cycle on 4
odd
vertices?
edges, odd number of edges.
Odd length. So do you see why a cycle on 4 vertices is actually 2 colorable? Right? A cycle on 6 vertices is also 2 colorable. You just color the alternate vertices red and blue, and that's a 2 coloring. The problem is odd cycles. You color this black, you color this white, you color this black, you color this white, and now you come to this vertex. It cannot be colored black or white, and that's a problem, right? And this argument works for every odd cycle. So odd cycles are non-bipartite. Okay. However, even cycles are bipartite. So the question is, well, we know this very nice infinite family of graphs that are all non-bipartite. Are there any other non-bipartite graphs? Surely there are. Any graph that contains an odd cycle as a subgraph will also be non-bipartite. So if you have an odd cycle, let's see, and if you add more edges to it and you add more vertices to it, that will not change the fact that the graph is non-bipartite. Because if you can two color this whole graph, then you can two color any subgraph of it, right? Just take a two coloring and look at the restriction of the two coloring to that subgraph, right? So every subgraph of a bipartite graph is also bipartite. So that's an observation. Every subgraph of a bipartite graph is also bipartite. And the easiest way to prove this is to think of two colorings, right? If you can color the whole graph red and blue, then look at that coloring and look at the restriction to any subgraph. That is a two coloring of that subgraph. Okay? So what does this mean? We know the odd cycles are non-bipartite, and we know that every subgraph of a bipartite graph has to be bipartite, which means that if you have a subgraph that is an odd cycle, then your whole graph has to be non-bipartite. Right? This implies that if G contains an odd cycle, then G is a non-bipartite. Okay. So what do I mean by contains? As a subgraph. So the term contains will be often used in this course, and every time we will have to say what it means in that context. Okay. So now at this point, can we go back to our decision problem and say whether it is in co-NP or not? Is our decision problem in co-NP?
If we provide an odd cycle to my friend, so he can easily verify in polynomial time whether that cycle is an odd
Right.
cycle or not.
Right. But have we proved that? Or is there something required to be proven in order to prove it?
I think we have not
No, right?
proved, means
Right.
no, we have not proven
We have
it. No,
not,
no, no.
Yeah, we have not proved the converse yet. But you're right. There is a natural question. We know that if there is an odd cycle, then the graph is not bipartite. That does not mean that every non-bipartite graph contains an odd cycle. If that is true, then that would give that the problem is in co-NP. And that turns out to be true. So that is our first theorem. Theorem 4.7. A graph G is not bipartite if and only if G has an odd cycle as a subgraph. Okay, so we haven't proven this. We have proved one direction. If there is an odd cycle, because the odd cycle is non-bipartite, the whole graph is non-bipartite. So what we have proved is the converse. Okay, what remains to be proven is the forward direction. If a graph is non-bipartite, then it must contain an odd cycle. The only reason you cannot color the graph with two colors is because there is an odd cycle somewhere in your graph. Right? That's one way to look at it. So we need to assume that let G be a non-bipartite graph. Okay, and our goal is to find an odd cycle in G, either to find or to establish the existence of an odd cycle. Okay, so find is a more algorithmic thing. When you use the word find, it seems like you are looking for an algorithm. If you don't care about algorithms, you can think about just establishing the existence. For many graph theoretical problems, if you establish the existence, you can also get the algorithm for it, right? But that's not true for every graph theoretical problem. Okay, so I just want to point out the subtle difference between finding something and just establishing the existence of something. Okay. But before we prove this, I want to go back to our discussion on complexity classes, and I want to look at this. Does everybody now see why the decision problem is in CoNP, the decision problem 0? If you want to convince your friend that a graph is non-bipartite, you just show your friend an odd cycle. You might ask, well, how do I find the odd cycle? That CoNP and NP, they don't care about these things. All it means is there exists a certificate which can be easily verified. How do you find that certificate? That is your problem. That is about algorithms. That is not about complexity theory. Okay? Does that make sense? Are there any questions or concerns?
Sir, I have a question. Yes, sir. I have a question. So once we prove this theorem, we can say that DP0 belongs to CoNP.
That's right. That's right. So I will put yes here.
Okay.
Due to theorem 4.7. Because the certificate is just an odd cycle. Every no instance, which means non-bipartite graph, has an odd cycle. You can give this to your friend, and your friend can check that this odd cycle is indeed an odd cycle, and it is indeed a subgraph of your given graph, right? So if your graph is vertices 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you tell your friend, hey, look at the vertices 1, 2, 3. They form an odd cycle. So this is easily checkable. You are not asking your friend to look at all the colorings of the graph. You're just saying, here is an odd cycle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example. And this can be checked easily. Okay? Are there any questions about NP and CoNP? This is a very good time to ask questions about NP and CoNP, because in the rest of the course, we won't talk about these things too much. I might just mention them very superficially and leave it for you to think about it. Right?
Sir, I have a question. So these problem basically belong to both NP and CoNP classes.
That is right.
Are there any other graph theoretic problems that belong to both NP and CoNP?
We will see lots of them. If you are familiar with graph planarity, then that belongs to NP and CoNP. In fact, I want to point out a very cool thing. Many of you might be familiar with the complexity class P, polynomial time solvable problems on deterministic Turing machines. P is a subset of NP intersection co-NP. So I want to say a few words about this. Maybe I'll put it in the margin. So P is a complexity class. These are the easily solvable problems without using any technical terms. What it means more technically is polynomial time solvable on deterministic Turing machines. Okay? But if you don't know much about those things, don't worry. Intuitively, if it looks easily solvable, then that's good enough for this course. Okay? So P is a subset of NP intersection co-NP. And if you take a course on complexity theory, you might see a formal proof of this statement. We are not going to prove this formally here. I will just give you the intuition. Think about it as follows. Supposing I tell you that, hey, this is an algorithm that decides whether a graph is bipartite or not. Okay? You run the algorithm for some input graphs that you are interested in. You have some big graphs and you want to check that they are polynomial time solvable or not. So you use my black box algorithm. Well, why would you believe my algorithm? At the end of the algorithm, you would like to see a certificate, right? It's only natural if the algorithm tells you, hey, the graph is bipartite, it's only natural to ask the algorithm, give me the two coloring or give me a two coloring, right? And if the algorithm tells you that the graph is not bipartite, you would say, give me a certificate, for example, an odd cycle, right? So any algorithm that claims to solve a problem in polynomial time, when the algorithm terminates, it should give you a certificate for yes instances and also for no instances. And that's intuitively why P is a subset of NP and co-NP both. So if you are trying to solve a problem and you are trying to show that it's polynomial time solvable, it's not a bad idea to think about whether it is in NP and co-NP. Because if it's not in one of them, it cannot be in P. Okay? So the diagram looks like this. You have NP, you have co-NP.
Sir, can you just repeat the argument again for P subset of NP intersection co-NP?
Right. So it's not a formal argument. I'm just giving you intuition. You see, if you want to believe an algorithm, that algorithm should give you a certificate at the termination, right? That is only fair to ask for an algorithm to do, right? So if the algorithm tells you that a graph is bipartite, it should give you a two coloring of the graph. Otherwise, why would you believe the algorithm? That is closely tied with the correctness of an algorithm. Okay? When you prove an algorithm, you prove that it is correct. That basically means you want it to give you a certificate for both yes instances and for no instances. Right? And if the problem is polynomial time solvable, the certificate should also be polynomial time verifiable. Right? So this is not a rigorous argument, but this is the intuition why P is a subset of NP intersection co-NP. Does that make sense?
But sir, I have a question. You just said that if the problem is polynomial time solvable, then the certificates you are getting at the yes or no certificates written by the algorithms, they will be polynomial time verifiable. Why will it be the case? If the algorithm is
Okay. So again, not getting into a rigorous argument here, but the point is, how would you prove the correctness of your algorithm? When you prove the correctness of your algorithm, you generally show that if the graph is indeed bipartite, the algorithm returns the correct answer. So when you prove the correctness of the algorithm, the certificate's polynomial time verifiable is implicit in that proof.
okay.
Right?
Sir.
But again, I'm not getting into a complexity theoretic proof here, right? I just want to deliver the intuition of why you would expect P to be a subset of NP intersection co-NP.
Okay.
Yeah. So a course in complexity theory, I hope, would go into a rigorous proof of this statement, right?
Is
But
the rigorous proof actually quite detailed for this result?
I would have to think about it. I would probably have to talk to one of the complexity theorists in the department and find out.
Okay.
Yeah, I have forgotten the complexity theory part of things. Yeah. But yeah, I mostly remember the intuition because I don't do complexity theory for a living. Right?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So complexity theory, by the way, is a very rich subject with lots of complexity classes, very interesting stuff. We won't talk about complexity theory except for maybe PNP and co-NP. And that's the reason I wanted to talk about these three complexity classes, just so that you can appreciate the results in graph theory from a theoretical CS point of view. Right? Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns regarding PNP, co-NP, or anything else you have discussed so far? Okay, not. So now let's try to prove this statement. Is it clear why the theorem implies that the decision problem is in co-NP? Right? Is anybody not clear on this part? So it is the forward direction of the theorem that implies that the decision problem is in co-NP. And we need to prove the forward direction. We haven't proved it yet. Okay? So now we begin our first non-trivial proof.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Decision problem is this decision problem is element
Yes.
of co-NP. We are saying
Your voice is not clear.
because of the hardness of finding a
Yeah.
no certificate.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
It was
Is it
breaking a
audible?
bit.
Is it audible now, sir?
Yeah, now it's audible. Yes.
Okay, sir. This problem is in co-NP. We are saying because of the hardness of finding a no certificate.
No. So co-NP and NP do not have anything to do with finding the certificates. It just tells you that a certificate exists. Okay. So being in NP and being in co-NP does not imply the problem is hard. To give you an explanation, P is a subset of NP and co-NP, right? So if you just say that the problem is in NP, that does not mean that the problem is hard. You are mixing up NP and NP complete and NP hard. Those are different terms. NP by itself is a complexity class that does not tell you anything about the hardness of solving a problem. Okay? Because P is a subset of NP, and P, you know, are the easily solvable or polynomial time solvable problems, right? So NP and co-NP by themselves do not say anything about the hardness of a problem. They just tell you whether a certificate exists for the yes instances or no instances, and it tells you about the certificate being easily verifiable, not the problem being easily solvable. Is that clear? So what is a certificate? The certificate is an odd cycle. Can you verify if I tell you that, hey, here is your graph, the Peterson graph, and I give you a cycle 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 as per the labeling we did yesterday? Then you can check that this is a subgraph of the Peterson graph, and you can check easily that this is a cycle of odd length, right? These things are not difficult. Because they are not difficult to check, the problem belongs to co-NP. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So NP and co-NP, they do not say anything about how difficult a problem is to solve. They just tell you that the yes instances and the no instances can be verified or can be checked easily. They don't even tell you how to find the certificate. They just tell you there exists a certificate that can be easily checked. Right?
And NP says about S certificates and co-NP says about no certificates.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Good. So this is a very good point to discuss because it is a very common misconception in CS that NP itself has something to do with the difficulty of a problem. That's because NP hard and NP complete, they both contain the word NP or the term NP. Okay, so that's a very common misconception. So thanks for bringing up.
Sir, I have
Yeah.
a question. So just before you said that the planarity problem belongs to co-NP. So
It
does
belongs to
follow-
both NP, co-NP, and also belongs to P.
Okay. So does it follow from Kuratowski's theorem?
Co-NP follows from Krutowski's theorem, but we can discuss that more offline since many may not know Krutowski's theorem.
Okay.
Yeah, so Krutowski's theorem is crucial. Yeah. Any other questions or concerns? Okay. So again, if you are not, if you still have queries about NP co-NP, please feel free to reach out on Piazza, and we can have further discussion on these topics, right? But hopefully the last part I explained was clear. Okay, so we have just 4 minutes left. I don't know if I want to really go into the proof too much. Maybe we can start it. Are there any other questions or concerns before we start the proof? I might go over by 2-3 minutes, but not much more. Okay, so we want to prove that G, we have a non-bipartite graph G, and we want to establish the existence of an odd cycle in G. Okay, so how do we go about doing this? So first
Sir,
of all,
I can do
yeah.
BFS.
Right, that is one way to do it. I want to take a more non-algorithmic approach to the problem. Okay, so as far as possible, I will not be using BFS, DFS algorithms. I'll be using spanning trees, which are the output of the algorithms. Okay. So before we do a BFS or DFS or spanning trees, let us reduce the problem to connected graphs. Okay. Notice that if all your components, your connected components are two colorable, then the whole graph is two colorable. Okay, because between the components there are no edges. So you take the coloring of the components and that gives you a coloring of the whole graph. So observation. Since G is non-bipartite, at least one component of G is non-bipartite. By component, I mean connected component. Okay, so to give you an example, if your graph is non-bipartite, then at least one of these components, in this case, two of the components are non-bipartite, right? And the reason this is an observation is that if all components, I'm writing down all details because this is the first proof, but gradually I will be writing fewer and fewer details. If all components are two colorable, then we get a two coloring of G by putting these together, right? This should be clear. Right? Okay. So at least one of the components is non-bipartite. So we are going to pick one such component, and in that component, we are going to find an odd cycle. Okay. So let H denote a component of G that is non-bipartite. Okay, so now our goal is to find an odd cycle in H. Okay, I'm going to use some results from assignment 0 that you will be proving by yourself, and these I expect you to have seen in your previous courses. Okay, so you have a connected graph H which is non-bipartite. What can you say about connected graphs with respect to spanning trees? Anyone?
Every connected.
Yeah, go ahead. Krishnan?
Yeah, graph is connected if it has a spanning.
Exactly. By assignment 0 and your previous courses, you know that H is connected if and only if H has a spanning tree. Okay, so let T denote a spanning tree of H. And it exists because of this theorem, which is on your assignment 0. Okay? So now we have a spanning tree of the graph H, which is a component of G, a non-bipartite component of G. Okay? So let's not go further. Let us continue the proof from here tomorrow. And maybe you can try proving it yourself from this point. It's a good exercise to try proving it yourself. Okay? So I will just give you a hint and we'll continue tomorrow. Can T be two-colored? T is a tree. Can you two-color T? Okay? And all right. So that's all for today. We will complete the proof tomorrow. We will find the odd cycle in the graph. And then we will continue to other topics. Any questions or concerns?
Sir, I think that if T can be two colored,
Mhm.
so if we take, there can be many two colorings of T, but I will fix a two coloring of T. Let that coloring be C. So
Yeah. So let's not complete the proof right now because I want everybody to think about it. But we can
Okay.
continue discussing offline.
okay, sir. Okay,
So
sir.
if you want, you can stay behind, and once everyone leaves, we can have this discussion. But I don't want to give it away to everybody. Right? It's a good exercise to think from here on your own. So, are there any other questions or concerns right now? If not, please feel free to leave the meeting. And those of you who want to stay back can stay back. Yeah.
Sir, can you give some more examples of co-NP problems?
We will see examples during the course. We will see. So basically, just to reiterate, every problem you know to be polynomial time solvable is in co-NP because P is a subset of NP intersection co-NP, right? So if you know of any polynomial time solvable problem, shortest path, blah, 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 all of these problems are in co-NP. What is a certificate? That you can read up the literature, we can discuss it. One example was pointed out during the lecture is a planarity. So decide whether a graph is planar or not. That is also in co-NP because of a theorem called Krotowski's theorem. Right. So I'm going to stop recording just so that we keep the recording short. Does it answer